My name is Hannah, and for most of my life, my grandmother couldn't seem to remember who I was. Not all the time. Most days, she knew exactly who I was. Then, every now and then, she'd look up from her chair, smile like she'd just seen an old friend, and call me Lucy. It happened often enough that everybody in the family had a joke about it. My grandmother moved in with us after my grandfather died, and by then, people were already blaming age for everything, forgetting names, repeating stories, asking the same question twice. The Lucy thing got tossed into the same pile. Whenever I corrected her, she'd look embarrassed and apologize. My mother always said Lucy was probably some friend from childhood. Nobody thought much of it. Neither did I. A few weeks after my grandmother died, I was helping clean out her room when I found a loose floorboard beneath an old wardrobe. There was a wooden box hidden underneath. Inside were stacks of photographs, bundles of letters tied together with string, and a journal with a cracked leather cover. The photos caught my attention first. Every picture of my grandmother as a teenager seemed to include the same girl. They were at birthday parties together, school dances, family cookouts. One picture showed them asleep on a blanket in somebody's backyard. Another showed them standing shoulder to shoulder in matching dresses. On the back of several photos, my grandmother had written the same name, Lucy. I carried a handful of them downstairs and showed them to my mother. The second she looked at them, something changed in her face. Then she told me she'd never seen that girl before in her life. That should have been impossible. The more I looked through the box, the stranger it felt. Lucy wasn't some background friend who happened to show up a few times. She was everywhere. There were photographs where she looked more like family than a friend, yet nobody recognized her. Not my mother, not my great aunt, not a single relative still alive. One evening, I spread the pictures across my dining room table and just stared at them for hours. I remember getting hung up on one photograph in particular. Lucy had her arm around my grandmother, and both of them were laughing at something outside the frame. They looked close enough to finish each other's sentences. I couldn't stop thinking about how weird it was that an entire family could forget somebody who had clearly been standing in the middle of their lives. The journal changed everything. It started out normal enough. School gossip, complaints about teachers, arguments with her parents. Then, something shifted. The handwriting got messier. Whole pages looked rushed, like she'd been writing as fast as she could. My grandmother kept coming back to Lucy. She wrote that Lucy had started getting upset because people were forgetting things, not major things at first. A conversation from the day before, plans they'd made together, memories both of them swore had happened. Then it got worse. One teacher apparently marked Lucy absent for an entire month, despite having spoken to her every day. A neighbor who'd known her since childhood suddenly introduced himself like they were strangers. One entry describes Lucy showing up at my grandmother's house, crying because her own aunt couldn't remember her birthday. Reading it now still makes my skin crawl because none of it sounds dramatic. On the page, it sounds confused, like two teenagers trying to explain something that shouldn't be happening. The final entries were written only days apart. My grandmother wrote about sitting beside Lucy at a lake outside town. Lucy apparently believed people weren't forgetting memories anymore. They were forgetting her. She told my grandmother that eventually nobody would remember she had ever existed. My grandmother argued with her for 3 pages. You can actually feel the desperation in the writing. Then the entries stop. Lucy's name disappears completely. After that, the journal becomes ordinary again, almost like somebody had ripped an entire person out of the story. I spent months trying to prove she was real. Most searches went nowhere. Then I found a census record, just one. It listed Lucy living with her parents and siblings. 10 years later, another census showed the same family at the same address, same parents, same children, except Lucy was gone. There wasn't a death certificate. There wasn't a missing persons report. There wasn't anything. About a year later, I drove to the lake. I wasn't expecting answers anymore. I think I just wanted to stand where they had been standing. While walking along the shoreline, I found a small metal locket tangled beneath the roots of a fallen tree. Inside were 2 photographs. One was my grandmother as a teenager. The other was Lucy. Folded behind them was a tiny note. The paper was yellow and brittle, but the handwriting matched the journal exactly. It said, "If you're reading this, she finally forgot me too." I sat there staring at those words for a long time. What bothers me isn't finding the note. It's what happened afterward. When I got home, I showed the locket to my mother. She looked directly at Lucy's photograph for nearly a minute. Then she handed it back and asked who the girl was. The thing is, my mother had spent almost a year helping me search for Lucy. She had looked through those photographs dozens of times. We had entire conversations about her. Yet standing in my kitchen, she genuinely looked at that face as though she'd never seen it before.